Good evening, good afternoon, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, kings and queens of the land. Good afternoon, the royals. Good afternoon, the liberated zones of Africa, Burkina Faso, under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore. Good afternoon to President Abdurrahman Tian of Niger, the liberated zone under the French colony. Good afternoon to uh, uh, Mali. Good afternoon to President Asim Goita under the liberated zone of Mali. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to KZN, which is the liberated zone in South Africa, under the leadership of the MK party, led by President Zuma. The MK party have previously complained that the elections have been robbed in South Africa. But the President Ramaphosa and the Electoral Commission or the white people decided to continue like as if it's in a soccer game, or it's basically in a soccer game where you can just rob people, and when the referee find out that a particular team has been robbed, nothing can be done. You just have to continue with the game, because you just have the winning team have won. My name is Munguni Mkonto. This is the Royal Opinion. Today we're talking about um, the media briefing by Afriforum. Normally I don't talk about Afriforum or their briefing. The reason I don't talk about them is because I don't take them serious. I don't take them that serious. I don't think they're that important. So I only highlight issues that I think it's important. These I take them as extremists to the left. These are very bad people, animals to that level, where they don't respect any terrible people. They don't respect other people. So I normally don't talk about these people. But today I decided to talk about them because there's something important that I want to highlight about what they are talking about. Without any further ado or any further waste of time, let me share with you the interview. Thank you very much for joining. Click the like button and subscribe. Let me share with you this interview. I will stop the interview now and then to actually talk about the issues that are important on this interview.
In this country. I want to start off by saying we blame President Cyril Ramaphosa, as well as senior ANC leaders, as well as some people in government, for what is happening now. This is indeed a crisis. We try to avert this crisis. Some of you might know, in April last year, we wrote a letter to President Ramaphosa urging him not to sign the Expropriation Act, saying what we believe the problems in the Act are. And by the way, those problems are not fabricated. If you believe it is fabricated, go and read Section 12.3 of the Act, which allows expropriation with no compensation. Of course, Deputy President Mashatile said in October last year that no compensation and expropriation without compensation is the same thing. We try to avert this. We also stated in our letter to the President that this will harm international relations, it will harm investments in the country, and we hoped and asked that he would refer the Expropriation Act back to Parliament. But I must say, our proposal was treated with disdain.
Let me give a little bit of background before he continues. Uh, President Ramaphosa signed an expropriation bill in South Africa's constitution. Basically, what it means, uh, um, President Ramaphosa has uh, lied to South African that there's anything new in the expropriation bill. The expropriation bill that President Ramaphosa has signed, it's exactly what has been in the constitution for a very long time, since the beginning, since the constitution was in existence. So what he has signed, it's only the change of wording, but basically the change of wording meaning the same thing. Uh, President Ramaphosa changed the words. They said basically they said they would in the constitution allows South Africa to expropriate land in the interest of the state. That constitution does allow, and it has been allowing like that. But what people were complaining about, or what South African wants, is expropriation of land without compensation. So Ramaphosa signed an expropriation bill which says expropriation of land with nil compensation, meaning there will be compensation, and they say they will be negotiating with the farmer, which is exactly what has been happening all along. It has been willing buyer, willing seller. So basically, there are no changes in terms of South African policy in land. It's exactly the same as it was. Black people still don't have land in South Africa, and this legislation that President Ramaphosa has recently signed will not assist black people to achieve their goal of land liberation. It will not help them. But these people, the white people, have got something else in their mind. They've got something else in their mind. Donald Trump have decided to sanction South Africa for signing the expropriation bill. The reason why they would like to act like there's something serious that has happened in this way is to confuse black people. It's only to confuse black people so that they may think that Ramaphosa is actually acting in their interest. To confuse black people that President Ramaphosa is acting in the interest of black people. To rebrand Ramaphosa as somebody who has the interest of black people, while in reality it is well known that President Ramaphosa has no interest of black people, uh, all the laws that is signing are actually in favor of white people. So, uh, President Donald Trump of the USA, have decided to sanction South Africa, meaning to uh, we don't know, we don't really know of the details what will be affected by these sanctions, which individuals are going to be affected, or which areas are going to be really affected about the sanctions. But Donald Trump has issued the sanctions to in order to basically rebrand Ramaphosa, who is supposed to come back for the ANC presidency in 2027 because they can't find a replacement. So these people are reacting to that because they are the ones who are affected. Afriforum are the ones who are affected. They are the ones who are trading with America. When they say South Africa is involved in Al Gore, it's white companies, it's white farmers who are trading with America. Mainly, it's white farmers in South Africa. The exports to America is white people who are exporting to America. So if that is put under sanction, then the white people in South Africa will suffer because of what Donald Trump will do. Black people are not affected by the sanctions that Donald Trump can put in South Africa. White people, white farmers in South Africa, in Cape Town, which is the largest irrigation settlement in South Africa, followed by Groblersdal, which is the second largest irrigation settlement in South Africa. These two places are exporting a lot of fruits, agricultural products to America. They make billions of dollars. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. Richard Mie from MZim Mtoti is also in the class. And good afternoon to all the kings and queens of the land. Thank you very much, King Richard Mie. We're talking about the Afriforum media briefing. Let me continue to play this media briefing so that we can get into the.
Because to this day, we have not received any response from the president. So we try to avert this. If somebody is to blame, it's the president and senior ANC leaders. Also, with regard to the Bella Act, and you will know that President Trump mentioned some sectors of the community are being treated very badly, as he stated it. The fact is, the Bella Act is the worst thing any government can do to a section of its population. Afrikaners don't have traditional areas where our language and culture can thrive and exist. Schools, Afrikaans schools, plays a prominent role in our cultural existence. And therefore, an attack on Afrikaans schools is an attack on our cultural existence. And by sending out this message to
This Afriforum, like I absolutely agree with him. He's talking the truth. Language is quite important. Language is critical. Why is language critical? Why is he saying that an attack in language is an attack in culture? I agree with him 100%. And the reason he's saying that is because uh, the knowledge that you have comes from the language. It has to be a spoken language for you to be able uh, to know yourself. Language is quite important. That through the language, it's only through the language that we can understand our culture. It's only through the language that we can know ourselves. Because that is the only way to communicate is through a language. So if the language has been attacked, it means culturally, it means cultural alienation or cultural genocide. I would like to call it cultural genocide. It means cultural genocide. It means language. If you attack the language, you attack the knowledge, because all the knowledge comes through the language. There's no knowledge that you can give to anybody without using a particular language. So African language are intensely rich in knowledge and solutions. When they took the African language, now we want to go and learn Afrikaans. They are fighting now to protect their Africans, but they've destroyed our languages. We don't have middle class people don't have interest to teach their children their own languages because they don't see the importance of language. They want them to learn Afrikaans and English. Afrikaans and English are very violent language compared to our languages. So we should actually, as black people, talk exactly the same languages they are talking about our languages. He's protecting his Africans. We should actually be protecting our own languages in South Africa. About the same thing. When you attack the language, you attack the culture, you attack their knowledge, because culture and language can only thrive through the language. Culture and knowledge can only be imparted to the next generation through the language. If you destroy the language, you destroy the knowledge, you destroy the culture. This is what they did when they arrived in South Africa. So now they want to protect themselves from black people, because if they go to the same schools as black people, then there's that eh, the mixing. I wanted to use a particular term, the right kind of term. I just forgot the English. But the mixing between their cultures dilutes the language. We should have schools in South Africa that only teaches children in Zulu. Have schools in South Africa that only teaches children all the subjects in Venda. Have schools in South Africa that teaches children in Sutu only, because this is very, very important. That's why they are fighting for their Africans, because in otherwise they are going to lose their culture. They are going to lose the knowledge that the Africans know language can bring to their children. Our ancestors did not write books. They were imparting the knowledge through the language. They did not write books. They were imparting, they were transferring the skills of their trade through the language. They were teaching the art through the language. If you attack the language, it means you've destroyed the culture, you've destroyed the knowledge that comes from the indigenous, that richness of the language. So let's continue to listen. I actually agree with him absolutely 100%. In terms of language, we should actually be talking exactly what he's talking about our children, about black
To the world, as well as the US, that this government is allowing a certain section of the population to be targeted. Then it is not our fault. The president, as well as senior ANC leaders, should take full responsibility for that. Afriforum, Solidarity, and the Solidarity Movement tried to solve this targeting of our community through the Bella Act, through constructive discussions. Solidarity had at NEDLAC negotiations. As you know, Solidarity is a trade union, but Dirk can speak for himself just now. And there was an agreement that was also signed by the presidency. And we hoped we could avert this situation. And we were then again treated to disrespect by the president, publicly denying that the presidency was involved. And that, of course, is not the actions of a president that has the interests of the country at heart. It's not a president that is loyal to all the people of this country. It's a president that places his own party's interest above the interests of normal South Africans, and not only Afrikaners. And therefore, our cultural relationship person, Barend Ace, has already this morning started to engage with various cultural communities and traditional leaders. It is now time that we build a future in a network of communities and we can do this despite governments. Those are the issues. Then, of course, we proudly part of the solidarity movement, and as our chairperson Flip Buys mentioned, we see our future in Africa. Our people in Afrikaans, the Afrikaner folk, became a people here on the southern tip of Africa. We did not develop elsewhere. We are not Europeans. You had Germans, Europeans, Dutch coming to the southern tip of Africa as Europeans, but we became a people here. We are indigenous to this people and to this country, and we are going nowhere.
Rewriting of history. He calls himself indigenous in South Africa. He's an indigenous person in South Africa. Rewriting of history. There's nowhere they can go. I really agree. South Africa is a very rich place. Africa is a very, very nice continent, very rich. If you come to this continent, you will not want to leave. You are going to fight just like they are fighting. These people, they are fighting for the right to stay and for the right to oppress other people while staying in their land. White people, that's what is shocking about them. When they realize that this land is beautiful and this land is rich, they decided, instead of living in peace with the people they find in the land, they decided to fight for the right to oppress the majority. He's saying he's indigenous to South Africa, he's not going anywhere. I agree. There is nowhere you can go. Where will you go? Because Europe is too dry. You know Europe. You've been to Europe. Europe is very dry. You love Africa because Africa is rich. And that's why you are fighting for your right to exist in South Africa. Well, no problem existing in South Africa. The only thing is you need to recognize that there were people before you came. Before you make yourself indigenous, you need to recognize that there were people who were indigenous in this land before you became indigenous, as you are labeling yourself. We know you come from Europe, but maybe Europe is indigenous.
We want to also show appreciation to President Trump, as well as of course the US government, for recognizing and identifying the discrimination that Afrikaners are experiencing through racial legislation, through the BLA Act, through threats to property rights. Of course, hopefully that will help to also urge the various parties also in this country to go to the negotiation table to find amicable solutions that's in the interest of all in the country. So that we will do. But we have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere. We are not going to ask our children now to move to another country. The fact is, our ancestors worked hard to make sure that we as a people are formed here on the southern tip of Africa. We're not going to disrespect that. We also have the interests of future generations in mind. We also have to make sure that our culture is transferred to future generations. And that cannot be done abroad. You cannot in the long term, or there's a real risk. If you go to another country now, there's a real risk that your grandchildren will not say to you in the morning, "Hello, Opa." They would say something like, "Hi, Granddad," or something in that respect. And that we don't want. That is why we are committed to find solutions locally. What are those solutions? I think there's a two-pronged approach. Flip Buys mentioned the Afrikaner Declaration. In the first place, Afrikaners want recognition as a group, not privilege. We want to be, as anybody else, recognized as first-class citizens in our country of birth.
He wants Afriforum says they want to be recognized as first-class citizens in South Africa. They want a declaration to be recognized in South Africa as first-class citizens in the country of their birth. I don't really know what that does that mean, because everybody is recognized. I think he does have the South African ID. That's a recognition. That's what it means. It's a recognition of your citizenship in South Africa. If you've got a South African ID, then you are basically recognized as a South African citizens. The people who don't have South African ID, it means they are not recognized as South African citizens. So I really don't really understand what does it mean for him to be a first class citizen, and what does it mean for the other people. What the other people are supposed to be if he is the first class citizen. Who is the second class citizen, or who is how many classes do we have in the citizenship of South Africa? How many classes do they want to create? Because they want to create first class and second class or third class. That's what they are talking about. Of course, they won't go anywhere. South Africa is their home. There is nowhere else they can go. South Africa is very rich. There have been, these people, they own farms. When we talk about the billions that they are making by selling to the US, they make billions out of the land that they have stolen from black people. Can you really abandon all of those to go and stay in Europe, a desert? Europe is a desert. Can you really go and stay in the desert? A desert with no resources, with no minerals, with no food. It does not have food, no minerals and no food. Well, I don't understand what does he mean when he say you want to be recognized as a first class citizen. I think it's nonsensical, to say the least. What he's saying is just nonsensical. With all respect to my people that are listening to me here, without insulting them, I'm saying this guy is just nonsensical, full of nonsense.
That can be done in various ways, and I'll mention the proposals we have just now. Then, of course, we also have to solve the problems of the country as a whole and the other cultural communities. In my discussions with Barend Eys, he has mentioned the huge problems that are experienced in traditional communities, where there's a lack of mother tongue education, where land is owned by the government, and they refuse to make sure that those communities can have access to land. And this argument that these issues will be solved by the Expropriation Act is not true. The fact is, government does not provide land for communities. They take it for themselves, and they give permission for somebody to use it, and they can kick them off. So that's nationalization of land. And so this act will not solve that. It will worsen that. The government's land reform program has failed dismally. Why? Because they don't give property rights to people that get their land. And if you don't have a title deed, you cannot go to a bank and get funding, and therefore you are set up for failure. So government has set up black people for failure on farms in this country, and to their own acknowledgement, 90% of these farms are failing. So for that, this government also needs to take responsibility. There is a land restitution program that we are in favor of. People that were lost their land unfairly and was not compensated. In terms of that program, why does it fail? this government loves to blame people for other people for what's going wrong, to hide their own responsibility. When we saw last month what was happening in the country, the president did not come out and say, well, we will address these issues, things that we've done that we think can be changed. No, they tried to get the scapegoats. Now it was Afriforum's fault. You know, people used to always blame Jan van Riebeeck, but this week Jan van Riebeeck had an opportunity to rest. It was now all Afriforum's fault. And also with regard to land, the government should take its responsibility for what is going wrong. In the restitution process, we've seen corruption. We've seen land being given to people that are connected to the ruling party, and we saw administrative chaos in that regard. The government has 4,000 farms, owns the largest chunk of land in this country, but again, without acknowledging that that land can be used to take on inequalities in the country. They're now saying, well, white people, as they call it, don't want to be described in a racial term. We are Afrikaners. They say we own the most land in the country, which is false. It's the biggest part of what we see, or 20% of the country as a whole, the biggest part of commercial farming land. But commercial farming land is.
Then if you don't own land, don't worry about the expropriation without compensation, because it will not happen to you. If you don't own the land, why worry about the expropriation of land without compensation? If you say you don't own most of the land, if you say government owns most of the land, let government worry about expropriation of land without compensation. Why are you not in favor of expropriation of land without compensation? In actual fact, uh, personally, I'm not against expropriation of land with compensation. I'm just against the expropriation of land with compensation, but the people who are compensating is the people whom the land was stolen from. If we use taxpayers' money to pay for the land that white people took from us, it means we are the black people, land have been stolen from them. Instead of getting the land back, they have to buy the land from the people who stole the land. It does not make sense. If Britain can compensate the white farmers, if we take the land, I don't have a problem with them getting compensation or getting paid. If America can compensate them, because America does have US aid. US aid, they can use US aid to compensate the white people in South Africa when we take the land, because those are the people who send them to come here and took our land. So if we take our land back, they must compensate their own people. It does not make sense that we are the ones who have to compensate them. I'm not against expropriation of land without compensation. I'm against black people compensating white people for their land. If Britain and America can say they want to, through those charities, because they issue out billions and billions of dollars every year to come and capture Africa, to use the money for corruption. Instead of using that money from the USA for corruption in South Africa, they should use it to compensate their friends, their farmers. Wait until President Zuma is in back as president, as the state president. What they are doing, they know exactly there's nothing into this thing. They know there's no expropriation of land without compensation in South Africa. They know exactly there's no such. But they are afraid, just like you are saying, Mr. Mia, they are afraid that black people are coming. They are afraid that President Zuma is coming. So they are trying to threaten before President Zuma takes over. They're trying to threaten him even before he takes over that his policies will not work in South Africa. They're trying to demonstrate using Ramaphosa fake. I spoke about the Bella Bill. Those who follow the channel will know that I spoke about the Bella Bill. The Bella Bill is actually a very bad policy for black people. It's actually a very dangerous policy or a very dangerous law for black parents. Afriforum, they're just acting like this just to confuse black people, just to make black people think that the law is going to assist them. But analyze the law, check exactly what it does, the provisions it makes, what do they seek to achieve. Check, you will understand that this thing does not work, is not working in favor of black parents. It's not a legislation passed to improve any education of black children. It's not a legislation passed to decolonize the education of black children. It's not a legislation passed to help black children becomes more intelligent. It's a legislation to criminalize the black parents. That's what it is. So they are using that, which they created against black people, as something which is for black people, creating a propaganda like it is for black people in South Africa. Wait until President Zuma takes over and does the real transformation. Then we can start talking. Now we're not talking anything. There's nothing to talk about here. Ramaphosa did not do anything significant to anybody.
Is a small portion, because what is not seen as commercial farming land is traditional land that, of course, is not developed because people there are set up for failure. There are lots of other land owned by government which they refuse to transfer. So those are the issues. So don't come with false propaganda, and I'm not speaking to you, of course. We love the media, we believe in freedom of the press. We are speaking specifically to those that now create some crisis and say now we have to go and disrespect property rights. It will create more problems than those they are trying to solve. We've seen in Zimbabwe, it did not bring prosperity that everybody in Zimbabwe now have land. We've seen hyperinflation, we've seen millions of people leaving Zimbabwe. We have seen the economic collapse, and we are seeing people that are unemployed at the moment in Zimbabwe. We can be partners to help solve this land issue, but we are tired of being made the scapegoat for everything that is going wrong in the country. Then, with regard to solving other problems in the land, in the country, we believe that we can assist. Afriforum has 165 branches countrywide and 177 neighborhood watches that are active in local communities to make sure that we fix roads, that we make sure communities get water, and that we make sure we clean up our towns. And that is, of course, to the benefit of everybody in those towns. And we will continue to do that as part of building relationships. What is our proposals? We believe there should be an amendment act with regard to both the Bella Act, as well as the Expropriation Act. We believe the government should review its foreign policy. The two biggest trade partners of South Africa, the biggest one is, of course, China. The second one is the US. And as a country where our economy is only 0.4% of the world economy, we have to make sure that we benefit as much as we can in the interest of people in this country. What we are unfortunately seeing is a government that has moved away from a policy of neutrality. We need to be neutral so that we can trade with both China and the US. But of course, I don't have to give the list. We mentioned it yesterday at another media conference. but we've seen a move towards anti-Western, anti-US sentiments, and we now are reaping the terrible fruits of that foreign policy that we have. The cultural code is necessarily, Dirk will speak about the 141 pieces of race legislation in the country. And of course, one important thing is hate speech. If you're going to allow people to sing Kill the Boer, and everybody is just saying, no, this is not literal, this is figuratively speaking. Well, the actions we are going to face now because of this kind of hateful conduct is not going to be figurative, it's going to be literally. We are literally going to see that. And we expect government to take a stance against that. The president has been silent when a section of the population have to hear that they have to be killed. And that is, of course, what is leading to what we are seeing now. Other solutions with regard to safety, the biggest murder rate in the country, everybody suffers. We are committed with our neighborhood watchers to cooperate to make sure that we get a safer country. Corruption, the US has written a letter to the government a few years ago already, saying that investment is hindered by corruption in the country. We've seen in the Zondo Commission how many people have been involved in state capture, and you don't have to be good in maths to be able to count how many people have been prosecuted. Nearly none. And that sends out the message to any country that they won't want to invest here. You know, even the ANC, if you look at their members or leaders that are mentioned in the Zondo Commission, 97 of them, only 34 have had to appear in front of the Integrity Commission. This is not a government that is serious about tackling corruption. In local communities, we will continue to work with all communities there, with municipalities, and we want to see specifically as a partner in this. Government, sometimes in municipalities, they are willing to see it fail. They are willing to see that contaminated water goes to townships and suburbs simply because they don't want to cooperate with anybody else. That needs to change. We need to promote mother tongue education for all. That is the biggest injustice against all the people of this country, is that only Afrikaans and English-speaking people, and if Bella is implemented as Mr. Lesufi wants it, it will only be English people that will have mother tongue education. We need to make sure that is, we actually build it to all communities. That is an injustice also towards other communities. And then we want to say we want to build a...
I agree with Afriforum here, 100%. It's what I said earlier. It's actually an injustice. It's actually an injustice if these languages, they are the people, they are the ones who destroyed our languages. They are the one who created this injustice. Now the same injustice, they don't want to suffer the same injustice that they have suffered, that we have suffered as people. The issue of language, it should be uh, all s- all languages, all official languages. Schools need to be created by a black government. A pro black government should create schools that will teach children in their mother tongue. Those who want to take children to go and learn English and Afrikaans will take their children to go and learn English and Afrikaans somewhere else. There should be English and African schools. But they should also be vernacular schools, South African schools that will only teach vernacular. This is very, very serious. It will restore the culture, the African culture, because the language comes with the culture. The the culture can only be taught through the language. The songs, the stories can only be told through a language. The knowledge can only be imparted through the language. If the language is corrupted, then the knowledge that you're going to receive is corrupted. So really, in this regard, I really agree with Afriforum that there should be this injustice should not continue to exist in South Africa. All people should be free to learn in their own mother tongue. That's basically what there's a lot of things that I can continue to share about this group, but I think today I've spoken enough. I've shared enough about them. I'll appreciate it for joining Richard Meyer. I'll appreciate it for being around. I'll appreciate it the second person whom I'm not even sure who is joining. Thank you very much. Please have enjoy your day as I end this um, live stream.